Welcome to the channel. I'm Tony the Technician, and today we're going to be going into my half-inch drive ratchets. We do have quite a few to go over and a few different brands to go over, so we'll be going over some of their features, my thoughts on them, which ones I use pretty often and which ones I don't use all that often, my thoughts on them. I've kind of gotten to the point to where I've gotten rid of a lot of the tools that I don't enjoy or I just, didn't like to begin with, and now I basically just have ones that I do like. So I'm not gonna have a whole lot that I don't recommend. So all of these products will be linked down in the description for you guys. Some of these I've owned for close to 10 years, some of them just recently. So they all do have their place and their own scenario. Some of those scenarios more often than others. So let me know your guys' thoughts. If you guys have used any of these or if you've thought about purchasing any of these, please let me know your guys' thoughts. Or if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns on any of these or would like to see a comparison of any of these ratchets or a breakdown of any of them, I'd be happy to make a video for you guys. So if you guys enjoy, make sure to smash that thumbs up. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. Let's go ahead and take a look at my half-inch drive ratchets. So here we're looking at my half-inch drive ratchets, and honestly, if you guys follow the channel, you guys might have seen my 1/4-inch drive and 3/8 drive videos, where I obviously have way more 1/4-inch and 3/8 drive ratchets compared to my half-inch drive selection. And honestly, that's due to a couple things. One being that a lot of the times when I'm working on larger fasteners, I'm using an impact. Not always, but a lot of the times. Sometimes I'll have to break something loose with a half-inch drive ratchet. And since I have a couple of larger half-inch drive ratchets, I have a couple of half-inch drive breaker bars, but honestly, I don't use them anymore. The strength of these new generation ratchets tend to be plenty strong to handle a lot of hard fasteners. And so I just don't find myself using half-inch drive ratchets as often as the other two drive sizes. I'm primarily finding myself using an impact. If I'm breaking something loose, I'll use some of my larger ones. So with that in mind, these two over here rarely ever get used. The standard length ones I rarely use. These I'll use because of the comfort grip. I can apply a little bit more torque to them without an issue. And then these two over here are the ones that I really use when I need to break loose a fastener. So first up, we'll get into some of the specs and features. I will have as many of these as possible linked down in the description for you guys if you guys are interested. We have 3 different brands, 6 different ratchets. So this one was bought in a set with a 1/4-inch drive and 3/8 drive. And this is one of the first sets that I bought from Gearwrench. And this is the 120 XP. I really enjoy the 120 XP, primarily once again in the 3/8 and 1/4-inch drive. The half-inch drive, there is very little back drag. It feels really good for a half-inch drive. It is a beefy ratchet. All of these are not overly beefy like your generic ratchets where they're about an inch thick, but being half-inch drive, they are built very well and they feel extremely sturdy. But here's just a listen of the 120 XP, which is a 60-tooth main gear with dual pulls that alternate, creating 120 positions. You can kind of hear those pulls alternating on the main gear. It does use a snap ring style backing plate. These are very thin, and I do tend to find that these, you can see it's got a little bit of play here. These do tend to let in a little more dirt and debris than your sealed backing plates like you see over here. But I like to clean my ratchets and re-lubricate them about twice a year so they don't get too bad. But these also will, if you over lubricate them, leak quite a bit more or easier than your sealed backing plates like the one here and here. So that's just something to keep in mind. Overall, I like its design, but when it comes to half-inch drive, if I am using a ratchet, it's very rare for me to use a standard length half-inch drive ratchet. With this design, you do get a semi-recessed reverse switch. They do have the relief cut out down here. And the handle, even though it's not comfort grip, it is quite beefy, so it's not, painful in the hand if you have to apply a decent amount of pressure to it. This Gearwrench 120 XP non-flex head comes in at 11 inches. Next up, we're looking at the Olsa Tools. This came in a 3-piece set with the 1/4" drive and 3/8 as well. This one I very, very rarely use. I primarily got the set for the 1/4" drive and 3/8, which, while I haven't had the best luck with roto head ratchets, just because I think of it, the overall design of the head creates a lot of back drag on all brands. I've used 3 different brands besides this Olsa Tools. They all have quite a bit of back drag compared to your standard design ratchets, and I think that just has to do with this style of head. I do like their functionality when it comes to the 1/2", or when it comes to the 1/4" and 3/8. I don't really use the 1/2" roto head. These are great for really awkward spaces, or, you know, speed driver, which is really nice, just not in the 1/2" drive. With the roto head ratchet, all 3 drive sizes, they are going to be a thicker ratchet, pretty tall profile, and a lot of them, some of them do have a smaller kind of semi-recessed reverse switch here. I don't care too much for this style of reverse switch, but it's what you find on most roto heads, and it just creates a large profile. And I will say, this being the Olsa Tools, this is a 90 tooth, and out of the other 3 brands that I've used, these do tend to have, I find, the least amount of back drag out of the other ones that I've tried, like the Pittsburgh and the Gearwrench. I also used the Carlisle, which actually was pretty good as well, but ended up with the Olsa set just because of the price, and the 3-piece set, while I only used 2 of them, the set is nice for the money, especially for a little bit less back drag on these compared to the other 2 that I didn't have good experiences with. So this one comes in at 11¼ inches long. Next up, we're looking at the Gearwrench 90 tooth. This was released after the 120 XP, which at the time I thought was really weird, because Gearwrench already had, they kind of got away from their generic 72 tooth, moved to 84 tooths and the 120 XP, and then they released the 90 tooth, like I said, which I thought was weird at the time, but it's when kind of a lot of the bigger name brands were switching to 90 tooth ratchets, and I think they were trying to fill in the gap, because they weren't just only going to have the 120 XP, because this is personal preference. Some people love it, some people hate it. I really enjoy it. If you don't, I completely understand it, but I really enjoy them. But I feel like this didn't necessarily replace, because they still offer the 84 tooth, but I think they made this to fill in that gap, to kind of compete and have an offering that everybody else was offering. And it is very smooth, very low back drag. And I enjoy the 90 tooth ratchets. It's kind of become the new norm over the 72 tooth. And I think a 90 tooth is a very good area to fall in for tooth count, arc swing, back drag resistance. I think it's overall a really good tooth count, and it's got really good strength. This one actually does have the lowest profile of all of my 1/2" drive ratchets. While none of these are super low profile or super thin, because they are 1/2" drive, they have to be strong enough to handle the torque that's going to be applied to them. I really enjoy it. And there you can kind of see the semi-recessed reverse switch. And this one I tend to use quite a bit more than the 120 XP, not just because of the low profile. That's not going to save you a whole lot when working with 1/2" drive, but when you have to apply a lot of torque, this is extremely comfortable in the hand. It's the newer design. They do have their older design that was red and black. It had a slightly different design to it, but overall the shape has stayed the same. Gearwrench just switched to the golden or orange and black a couple years ago, and so I find it to be a very comfortable comfort grip. This still does use the snap ring style backing plate. This one seems to be a little bit more snug in here, but still a little bit of play in there, if you can see it. And once again, you do see it does collect that dirt and debris a little bit more. So if you have a ratchet like this, I haven't had an issue with dirt and debris jamming them up to where they're not going to work, or you have binding issues. Obviously, that's going to depend on what occupation, the environment that you work in, but just keep in mind that with something like this, it is best to clean and lubricate this more often than your standard sealed head, like what we're about to look at. This Gearwrench comes in at 11 7/8 inches long. Next up, we're looking at the Capri, which is also a 90 tooth, and I've had this for maybe 2 years, and this was my go-to for 1/2" drive when I did use a standard length. And then I got this and I've started using it whenever I can. The Capri is a little bit thicker, but it feels really, really good. I would say the back drag is about the same. I do like that this uses a sealed backing plate with the Torx fasteners on the drive side. It just seems to seal, keep the ratchet clean a little bit better. This does not have a recessed cutout for the reverse switch, but it's got a fairly low profile to it and haven't had any issues bumping it on anything. But once again, when it comes to half-inch drive, it's not too often that I'm working in super confined spaces. And Capri does use a little bit different shape or design to their comfort grip, which at first thoughts, I figured this would feel really awkward in the hand being on both sides, but honestly, you're kind of gripping it like this and you're applying all your force here. And honestly, it's quite comfortable. So I really like this design, but once again, these are not used quite as much as these. The Capri comes in at 12 inches long. Next up, getting to one that I've used for almost 10 years and was my go-to for the longest time before recently, a few months ago, just picking up the Capri Extra Long, which we're about to look at. But this is the Gearwrench semi-locking flex head 120 XP. So exact same gear mechanism as the first one that we looked at, which I really enjoy. This one's gotten a lot of use, so the back drag on it, especially for a half-inch drive, is very, very little, and it's very, very smooth. Feels like it's built like a tank. It's got really good weight to it. Very comfortable, even being a non-comfort grip. Like I said, it's got quite a beefy handle to it for a half-inch drive non-comfort grip. Good length, 7 different positions that it can set in for the semi-locking flex head. It does use a ball detent. There you can see that. And when it's in a position, there is no play whatsoever on that. So moving it to the next one, a decent amount of pressure is needed to move to the next position. Here you can see, once again, semi-recessed reverse switch. And once again, one of my go-to half-inch drive ratchets for about 10 years. And this does, just like the other ones, use the snap ring style backing plate. And this one comes in at 17 inches. So I was just getting ready to pick up the Gearwrench's new 120 XP that is offered in a locking flex head and a slimmer profile head, which I did pick up in 1/4 inch drive, but that was later on. When I was getting ready to do that, because I was really interested and intrigued by it, Capri released these, and I was blown away by the price for the 3-piece set. This, by the way, came in a 4-piece set with a stubby 3/8 drive, a extra long 3/8 drive, an extra long 1/4 inch drive, and the extra long 1/2 inch drive. But Capri then released these bad boys, and it was all 3 drive sizes in extra long. And when I say extra long, I mean extra long. I think the 1/4 inch drive was 12.5. I think the 3/8 drive is like 20.5. And this guy comes in at 25 inches. So it is a long boy. It is beefy. It is sturdy. It's built like a tank. Same comfort grip handle. Now, one thing I will say, this has a specific place. This is kind of my go-to for a lot of tough stuff, but this has a good place. This has basically completely replaced my breaker bar because it's got really good strength, really good length, and it's a 90-tooth ratchet, so it's a lot easier to use than a breaker bar. So just like when we looked at the Capri over here, same features, 90-tooth, very smooth, especially for a 1/2 inch drive, well lubricated straight out of the box. No recessed reverse switch, but it does have a pretty slim profile for a reverse switch. And then for the locking mechanism here, you can see pushing the button is spring loaded. So it's not like the Gearwrench where you push it in and it's locked and then you push it the other direction and it unlocks. In the up position, it's locked. When you push it down, you can then free float it to whatever position you want. It does lock in the 90-degree position. There are a lot of brands out there that won't lock in this 90-degree position. The first locking position will be like right here. So I do like that. It does have 9 different locking positions. So a lot of
different locking positions, and it's very sturdy. Not a lot of movement in there. It does use teeth on both the bottom of the head and teeth in this plate, which wrap around the teeth. And I will say, I like the design of this locking mechanism over the Gearwrenches. Gearwrench has a lot of slop in the new design. That's one thing that I did notice. I do like on the Gearwrench that the button is flush when it's in the lock position, where the Capri does have a little bit of protrusion there. Where it does stick up, but I haven't had any issues with it, you know, getting caught on anything or anything like that. This is a 25-inch, half-inch drive ratchet, so it's not going to be being used in a whole lot of tight situations, but you can get a ton of leverage with this thing. I do have a dedicated video just on the 3-piece set where we break it down and look at that more in depth and a lot of information on that. And I also have reviews on a lot of these, but if you guys would like to see any specific video of any of my ratchets that I've mentioned in these videos, please let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to do a teardown of them or a comparison of one to the other, whatever you guys want to see. I'd be happy to make that for you guys. But that is a look at my half-inch drive ratchets. Once again, I will have these linked down in the description for you guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts, which ones you enjoy, which ones you may not have good experience with. Maybe it's not even these. If you guys have a preference, let me know your guys' favorite or one that you were disappointed with down in the comments. But if you guys enjoyed, make sure to smash that thumbs up. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.